Hello everybody and welcome back to the King Fox channel. My name is Matt Conager and I'm building a KitFox Series 7 STI, which is actually, it's upstairs in the garage. So let's get on up there. Alright, so I just carried the leading edge of the rudder back here and I can see that it sticks up a little higher than the trailing edge of the horizontal stabilizer. And it looks like I have enough clearing in here if I take a little bit off to move it up and down. And probably about the same here because I need to come down. But when I get down here, I'm sitting on top of that tab. That's the rudder stop, I think. So I'm going to have to take that up almost 1/4 of an inch, I think. And shouldn't be a problem, but that'll bring me down. I'm pretty close to being flush down here. Well, maybe about the same off as the top. But as I move down, I'll know a little bit more. But this definitely doesn't want to swing left and right, and that'll be a problem when I put the rudder on there. So, good time to catch that. And I'm sure trying to tighten these things up when you can barely get your fingers in there will be a lot of fun later on. So, and I think that's why somebody said they make their holes a little bit bigger on the fairing. And I think you're only supposed to leave enough space in here to get a couple layers of fabric on there. So I think they want to be nice and tight. Now, what I just noticed too a minute ago was the bonding to the fiberglass on the ribs. Some of them have popped loose. I don't want to pull on any that are bonded. I scuffed them lightly with Scotch-Brite, but not as good as I should have. I probably should have given them a little more tooth. However, I think the fabric's going to attach to here and pull this direction. And as you shrink it, it's going to pull it together. So I would like to think that this bond here would be the most important, as long as it's uptight against the fuselage and I have a good solid bond all the way down, which it appears I do. I am not going to pull on this. I'm hoping that will keep it tight up against the ribs. So if anybody has experience with this and they know I need to bond to here, let me know. One thing I am uncertain of is before putting these fairings on, it says to epoxy varnish your ribs. Well, if you put varnish on there, I don't think the 9460 would stick to varnish. I don't know that for sure, but I wouldn't try to finish a piece of wood and then glue it to another piece of wood, because usually that doesn't work. So if I'm sealing this, my thought was to put the fairing on, seal these ribs, and that's pretty much what I did on the rudder and the horizontal stabilizer. So I think I'm going to continue with that method. I'm going to glue everything in place, and then I'll come back and put epoxy varnish on, and I can get in behind there and dab it back in there with the brush, and it'll absorb into the wood. One thing I did do incorrectly is it's calling for a rib stiffener up here, but not in this location. It's calling for it back here. And you can see I have some deflection there, less deflection there, more here, although I'm bonded to the tube here also. So I'm going to dig through the kit and see if I have any more of these, because I'm out right now. One place I did use them was down here, because in the manual it calls for putting in these 3. But after I messaged Brandon, he got back to me and said, since this piece is bonded so well to the frame underneath on both sides, that these 3 basically aren't really required, because this is quite rigid. However, I had already cut them. I just had them set there as placeholders for once I got the email back from Brandon. So I had already cut them, so I didn't think taking those 3 little ones and sticking them in up here would have done much. But I definitely will put a stiffener on here, so I'm going to have to either order some or see if I have some in a box someplace, somewhere. So I'm gonna do a little filing on this guy. I gotta take a little bit off the bottom there and some more off the top down here. So bear with me. Alright, in that previous time lapse, you saw me do a little more filing. I cut a little bit bigger hole on the bottom hole on the speed fairing for the leading edge of the rudder. Then I swapped over to a sanding bit. Yeah, after marking the trailing edge of the fairing on all the ribs, I put a pencil mark on there, put the sanding bit on and came in and sanded in a little bit more on those. See that? Sanded in a little bit more on these detents because they were previously up to about here, so a couple of them I had to bring back farther. And in doing so, once I got down here to the bottom, I could see, I epoxied this when it was on the aircraft, and I do have some epoxy here in the top, or correction, in the bottom, and on this side, not much at all. A little tiny bit right there. But I noticed that this one is not bonded to the wooden rib. So I can either scuff that up a little bit more, add some epoxy over the top of this, but I think I'll also try to drop a little dab down in here if I can get a syringe in there. I'll probably try to do the same thing on this side while I'm in there, but I think I'll do that once I mix up the epoxy for the fairing. Right now I'm going to scuff up the inside of the fairing because I didn't do it as well as I probably should have for the trailing edge of the vertical stabilizer, but I made some marks on here where all my ribs are, so I'm gonna grab some Scotch-Brite, get in there and scuff those up. Make sure I have, because right now it's quite smooth after hitting it with that 400 grit sandpaper a little bit to knock those rough edges down. So we grab some Scotch-Brite and scuff those things up. Just happen to have some right here. How convenient. So probably not going to bore you with this. I'll just show you what I'm doing for the first couple, and then we'll speed things right back up. It really doesn't feel rough. I almost wonder if I should hit it with like some 80 grit sandpaper, but I don't want to mess up the fiberglass. I don't know if that'll do it or not. All right, time lapse, engage. All right, I got that scuffed up. I was using the Scotch-Brite, but it was basically polishing it. So I broke out a little 120, and it looks like it muddied the waters a little bit. It looks like it scratched it. So I'm gonna go get a rag with some warm water on it and wipe this thing down, clean my hands off, and see how it looks, if it's scratchy or not. Thanks for watching today's episode. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. Maybe it helped you out. If it did help you out and you want to share it with a friend of yours who's building another Kit Fox, go ahead and do so. Maybe they're unaware of this excellent channel. I appreciate you guys stopping back and watching, and I appreciate the good comments and everything that you've been leaving. A lot of things have helped me out along the way. So if you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button, the like button, the little bell for future notifications so you don't miss out on great content like this in the future. Have a great day, and we'll see you guys on the next video.